With ASAP Rocky's Don't Be Dumb out and about, and of course me sharing my thoughts, I figure it's time to do the ASAP Rocky album tier list justice once and for all. And with every tier list, of course, there's only going to be two projects that will be excluded from this, and that's the first two Cozy Tapes albums. Because obviously, this is not only by ASAP Rocky himself, but this is by the ASAP Mob crew that was really big, really hype at the time. And while, yes, I could tear those two projects out, I think that these two would be the only ones to just kickstart this tier list that I think are going to get excluded from this, as we're just going to focus strictly on ASAP Rocky's discography up until this point. And kicking off this tier list is going to be, of course, ASAP Rocky's debut mixtape, Live Love ASAP, to come out back in 2011 of October 31st. Again, there isn't a whole lot to be said about this project I haven't said already on my video covering this mixtape, considering that this is a classic. This has officially turned 15 years old and is one of the early foundations of the cloud rap genre that we come to know and love today. Again, this project was really the one that put ASAP Rocky and the ASAP Mob gang alike. It has features with Clams Casino, ASAP Tybeats, DJ Bro One, and of course Space Ghost Perp. And has a lot of really great and outstanding features that has honestly become synonymous and iconic at this point in the ASAP Rocky discography. Again, songs like Peso, Bass, Brand New Guy featuring Schoolboy Q, Purple Swag Chapter 2, Trilla, Get Lit, Keep It G, Kissin' Pink featuring ASAP Ferg, Houston Old Head, Acid Drip, Leaf. The songs off of this mixtape is just timeless, and it's just like an instant classic mixtape that, again, for me, this was like the epitome and the beginning of A$AP Rocky's career. And he started off with a big bang because now, when you look at the modern day and age of where hip hop is now, you know that there's like a lot of people that take a lot of the styles and ideas and concepts of what Rocky started with Live Love ASAP, and now I feel like this was also paving the way of like what was coming within the SoundCloud rap genre that came out in the late 2010s, and was honestly the start and like the blueprint of like the rage era hip hop scene that was coming out around that same time period as well in the late 2010s. So again, this mixtape is absolutely incredible. It still holds up to this day. The lyricism is still on point. The production on this mixtape is still on point. It still feels super spacey, woozy, and out of this world. And overall, like the performances on every song on this project is just near perfect. That I can't really say much else about it, which is why, like, if you know me from the video and what I'm saying now, I'm gonna start this bad boy off with pretty much an S tier, man. I'm simply gonna give this bad boy an S tier and leave it at that. And then, of course, we 2 years later down the line, we would get ASAP Rocky's long-awaited debut album, Long Live ASAP, which came out back in 2013. And this one, I remember at the time when this came out, this was like one of the biggest hyped projects at the time because this was ASAP Rocky. He was brand spanking new, riding high off of his debut mixtape. And it makes a whole lot of sense when you consider that the feature list off of Long Live ASAP is crazy wild, from Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, 2 Chainz, Drake, who was big at the time, Big Crit, Sandy Go, Overdose, Yellow Wolf, Florence Welch, Danny Brown, Action Bronson, Joey Badass, Gunplay, and ASAP Ferg. And then you have producers like Hit Boy, Clamps Casino, Jim Joneson, T Minus, Danger Mouse, 40, Skrillex, and Emil Hine among high profile producers. So this album here was set on like a huge pedestal. And in my opinion, I think that this debut album was crushed. Like, I absolutely crushed this album. I think that this project was really good for a debut album. I get that when this first came out, maybe it was overhyped at the time, but given A$AP Rocky's like huge push and huge like wave that came out after his debut mixtape, a lot of people, a lot of hip hop fans, alike myself, were looking forward to what A$AP Rocky had to offer. And Long Live ASAP honestly just continues that momentum that he left off of his debut mixtape. And yes, this isn't going to be a perfect project at the end of the day. This just feels like another continuation of his debut mixtape, but now in a more of a commercial appeal, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean that this project is like all by all means like really bad, or it doesn't like live up to his debut mixtape. Again, there are some highlights here from Goldie, PMW featuring Schoolboy Q, Level, Hell, Pain, Fucking Problems featuring Drake, Two Chainz, and Kendrick Lamar, which has become an iconic song. Wild for the Night, which actually has Skrillex and Birdie Nom Nom in the mix, and actually was like the last little bits of like what dubstep was back in its heyday. One Train, which has this huge hip hop collective featuring again Kendrick, Joey, Yellow Wolf, Danny Brown, Action Bronson, and Big Crit, all rapping the 6 minute juggernaut. Fashion Killer, which has become a really big iconic song, and honestly a foreshadowing of what was to come of ASAP Rocky going to Riri at one point. Phoenix and Suddenly being like really great closers. And then of course the deluxe tracks also becoming like pretty big hype songs. And again, Long Live ASAP is a project that, for me, if you really love a lot of the debut mixtape ASAP Rocky, you're gonna get a lot of bang for your buck for this debut album as well. And while I will admit that maybe like the beginning of this album is a little bit of a slow burner, in my opinion, I do think that it does pick up like towards the middle half, and it just ends on a really strong note that sets the stage of like why ASAP Rocky is a household name you have to look out for. Which is why, like now looking back and looking at this now, I would probably give this like a solid A tier. Yeah, I actually would give this bad boy an A tier now in the modern day and age. Now moving on from here, we're gonna go into ASAP Rocky's 2015 album, At Long Last ASAP. Look, I think for many and many hardcore ASAP Rocky fans alike, this is touted and considered to be ASAP Rocky's magnum opus, his best of his best, and arguably for some, the last of what made ASAP Rocky amazing, a household name, you name it, you guessed it. And honestly, while again, there have been some huge criticisms about this project that, again, a little bold reviewer has done over the years. Look, I Long Last ASAP is a project that, for me, is just a timeless. Again, it also turned 10 years old not too long ago. I think that this project has held up extremely well. Wise, again, I know this project may not be for everybody at the end of the day because, again, if you're not used to the Ace of Rocky style up to this point, why are you even watching this video, first and foremost? But second of all, at long last, ASAP just feels like a culmination of everything we come to know from his last two projects, but now it just feels like it's fully realized, if that makes sense. Because, again, this was also around the same time that year where, unfortunately, the sudden passing of ASAP Yams was also, in my view, playing part and tribute to this project's creation, in my view. And to me, I feel like this project starts off really good from Holy Ghost, Kettle Street, Fine Wine featuring Future, Joe Fox, and MIA, LSD, which has become a pretty big household drug anthem for many A$AP Rocky enthusiasts. Excuse Me, which honestly has a pretty like strong little opening and verse from front to back. Lord Pretty Fucko Jody 2, Electric Body featuring Schoolboy Q was also really good. Jukebox joints featuring Joe Fox and Kanye West back when Kanye was actually sane at the time. Um, Far Side featuring Joe Fox, Wavy Bone featuring Juicy J and UGK, which is like a clear homage to his roots in Houston. West Side Highway. Again, like when I list out every song off of this project, it's really goes to show how great this project has really held up. And again, I know there could be some criticism that this project is a really long-winded album, and maybe like over the years now, like some people do wish that this album was a little bit trimmed and it's toned down a little bit. But given that A$AP Rocky did give a lot of material off of this 2015 album, can you really blame anyone for why this project came out the way it is? Like it really is like the biggest magnum opus you could ever ask for a ASAP Rocky project. Now looking back at this project 10 years later, I think that this project for me is one that sadly I don't really go back on because again, when you compare it to like his first two projects here, these two are just like the more easier projects to just go back on and are just easily like accessible, and it's like so at times both of them are pretty fast and easy to listen to, whereas ASAP Rocky's A Long Last ASAP is a long-winded trip project to go through. Because if I'm not mistaken, this album actually is like the longest in terms of discography length, or sorry, in terms of album length, it is the longest out of all of the ASAP Rocky lengths or discographies that we have so far. So with that being said, I think that Back then I would have given this an S tier, but now looking and reflecting on like every project, especially the more recent ones, which we'll get into, I think at long last ASAP for me personally is now like an A tier. Again, it's a great project. It's definitely a good magnum opus for Rocky, mind you, but I think that it deserves to be in the A tier now because like it's one that like you really have to sit down and really get invested in. But all right, now of course we gotta get invested in this next project here, 2018's ASAP Rocky's Testing, which is considered by many hardcore ASAP Rocky fans, even to this day, somehow, as ASAP Rocky's worst project, its weakest project. And look, given that it was a 3 year time span between testing and his last album there with 2015's Long Last ASAP, I mean, it makes sense given like the expectations for this album was exponentially high at the time, and when this did drop, eventually a lot of people were sadly disappointed by it because it just wasn't fitting the vibe of his last three projects that you come to know and love. But look, over the years, it's come to no surprise, including myself, that I think testing was just overhated out. Yes, admittedly, I can agree that if you put testing and what I'm going to be bringing pretty soon, like toe to toe, this unfortunately is the weakest project from A$AP Rocky's discography, but is it a bad album? Is it like the worst album from A$AP Rocky's discography? Of course not. There's still some highlights off here that I would at least like to shout out. Songs like ASAP Forever or Fuck Sleep featuring FK Twigs. There's also Praise the Lord featuring Skepta. Calm Buckshots, Guns and Butter featuring Juicy J, which I've mentioned already when reflecting on this video. The two best songs off of the album, if I had to like pick two of them. OG Beeper, Kids Turn Out Fine, Hun for Third, Changes, Black Tux White Collar, Purity featuring Frank Ocean. Again, the songs here in testing just feels like this was A$AP Rocky going not only going in like a more mature stance in his life up until that point, but simultaneously like he was clearly testing out sounds, clearly testing ideas and concepts of what he wanted his next big project to look like. And again, while there are definitely some flaws off this album, there's not every song over here is great. It's not perfect to listen to, and maybe for some it's a huge turnoff when you compare it to his last three projects. I think that testing to me was a respectable attempt at trying something new, taking a risk, trying to be something creative. Because at the end of the day, what A$AP Rocky did was like again risk taking. Because at the end of the day, I don't want him to just be repeating the same three projects that we come to know and love over and over again, right? It's gonna get dumbed down and repetitive and really boring after a while. With testing, he was at least trying something different while also trying to like maintain his style and charisma that we come to know and love from his first three projects. And of course, when looking at this overall rank here, testing it's not like a perfect project by any means, but when you have to put in a tier list like this, I think I already know where I would put this. I would easily not put this bad boy in the C column. Again, shockingly, it should be in the C column. I would personally put it in like a B tier on a good day, but it's a C tier for a reason when you also compare it to the other projects that everyone has been talking about and praising about. And it's funny to think that Testing's album that came out back in 2018 would kind of set the stage of what would to come, and that is Don't Be Dumb. Because while testing was definitely not like a perfect project by any means, I feel like Don't Be Dumb was like the true successor to everything that testing was supposed to be in the first place. And I think that it was held really well. Again, Don't Be Dumb may not be like the best project in the world. Again, as I mentioned with testing, it's not gonna live up to his first three projects, let's be real here. But this album still has a lot of amazing highlights that I've already covered when talking and reviewing about this project already, so I'm not going to reiterate everything I have said here. But to really wrap this up, Don't Be Dumb is to me ASAP Rocky's like fully mature album, really giving you all up to date on like what he's been through personally in his personal life, in his music life, etc. And to me, this feels like again, ASAP Rocky is continuing his creative streak. This feels like it's him having fun, having a blast, and once again, while it may not live up to his first three projects, Don't Be Dumb is still a respectable album that's worth checking out. And I gotta say, shout out to like the art style of this. Like the art style for Dopey Dumb has been really crazy with the rollout and the hype surrounding this. And again, I hope that with what Dopey Dumb has to offer, that Acer Rocket continues this creative, risky side of him, where he's going to take risk with his next potential album that could be dropping in God knows how long, right? But again, with what we have here, it's clear that whatever sticks is going to stick going into his next project, and what doesn't stick is obviously not going to stick onto his next project. At least that's what I'm hoping. So yeah, to cut to the chase, don't be dumb. Um, this one, as of right now, because this is still relatively brand new, I would, for the first time ever on my tier list, I actually would put this between like the B and C column. It's a great album, but it's not gonna be like perfect by any means. Again, that's all I'm gonna leave it at. This is my tier list right here for every ASAP Rocky project. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you all in the next one. Later.